Hello everyone, it's Ange de Lumière. I'm a spiritual lawyer and an intuitive business strategist. I help entrepreneurs and people in business to connect to the wisdom of their business and their soul purpose, so that they can step up to the highest potential that they have. As I have acknowledged and noticed with a lot of the clients I have, and also with people I meet, is that very often we think too small. So I help people think bigger and embrace their true purpose, which is often a lot bigger than they think, which was the case for me as well. Anyway, today is episode 10 of High Vibe Monday. It's a show to help people uplift the vibe in their life and in their business. And today we're going to talk about how to deal with difficult people. So I'm doing this recording as a Facebook Live first, but this will also be posted on YouTube and on my podcast when I launch it. So for now, on the live, you can ask questions under this video, but once you watch it on other media, feel free to reach out through my page and message me, or find the actual original video on my Facebook page. It's in the pinned post where I have a listing of all the different recordings. So welcome to everyone who's going to join live. Feel free to ask questions as I go. I have a structure for this talk today because I actually have today 7 tips for you to deal with difficult people. Now, we all have difficult people in our lives, and I think that's something that we cannot avoid. And the chances are that we always will. So the thing is not to try to avoid these people, is to learn how to deal with them. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. Now, before we even start, I want to say there's a big difference between difficult people and abusive people. And if you have people who are abusive in your life, the advice I'm going to give to you today is not necessarily applicable. What you really need to do is remove yourself from the situation and keep yourself safe. So this is really, really important. Now, I need to say that if you come from an abusive background, if you've been abused as a child, and this is getting a bit too heavy for the talk today, but I think it's important that I mention it, you will probably not be aware of what abuse is because it's your normal. So if you wanted to kind of find out if there's something going on, and please then reach out to a professional that can support you with this journey. I want to recommend this book, which is called Nasty Man, and by Jay Carter. And he also wrote a book called Nasty People. So I'm not saying that it's only men who are nasty. Nasty comes in any gender and in many, many different variations. But what I really want you to encourage you to do is to remove yourself from the situation, keep safe, and also seek some help, so that you can pull away from that situation, that relationship, whichever relationship it is. Okay. What does he say? Well, anyway, this is a great book. It's a great reference, and I want to say something that might surprise you, and it actually surprised me when I read it. I read it at the time because my brother-in-law was reading it, and he said it was a great book, and he was facing a situation with his boss where she was actually quite abusive towards him, and he needed to find the way to manage the situation. So this book is great for that. So I read it out of curiosity to start with, and the more I progressed in the reading of that book, the more I realized that my first husband was actually abusive, and I had no idea. I gave him excuses. I didn't understand abuse at that time, and that's because I had experienced quite a lot of abuse myself as a child, so it was my normal. This is why I'm actually starting this recording this way, and it was a great moment for me to become aware of what I had lived in all my life and how I wanted to step out of it. So it's completely possible to move away from abusive relationships now. But for now, I want to just talk about difficult people who are maybe one tone down from abusive people, okay? So let's make sure of that. And it's also within the context of business. I'm not a therapist. Well, actually, I used to be, but this is no longer a role that I wish to embrace. I'm a coach, so we're going to leave this at I'm not saying a superficial level, but on another level. So if you need support with an abusive relationship or something in your private life, then please reach out. If you don't know who to work with, I might be able to recommend someone. There's loads of people who now work online rather than in person. I would really encourage you to reach out for help. Okay, so now we've put this aside. I want to talk to you about the first tip on how to deal with difficult people. The first tip is to remember that what they say is rarely about you, even when it is. Okay, so this sounds like a contradiction, but when they say something to you that is personal, don't take it personally. It is not likely to be actually your issue. It's likely to be their issue. Why is that? Because difficult people tend to project their problems onto other people. So they take no responsibility for where they are. They don't take any responsibility for their emotional state, or their feelings or anything else. So if they're angry, they're going to actually say that you're angry. If they're being difficult, they might say you are difficult because they can't take responsibility for what's happening in their lives. So even though they will make it extra personal, it's never about you, it's about them. So remove yourself immediately from the situation, at least mentally, by realizing it's not about you. This is quite difficult, and this leads to my tip number 2, because when someone approaches you with a rather aggressive or challenging behavior, we tend to immediately step into the flight or fight mode. So my second tip is don't react, respond. Okay, so it's okay to remove yourself from the situation if you get triggered, if it's too hard for you to manage. I used to think I had no power over it, and I would let people completely step all over me, and then they would leave, and then that would feel absolutely awful. I never thought I had the power to just leave the room, but I did it. I remembered, it's because I wrote my memoir recently, and I actually wrote about an instance where I literally walked away from my family, my entire family, when my mother was being abusive to me, and I just walked away. And that was the first time ever. Of course, I was a young adult by then, so I didn't have, I wasn't in a child-parent relationship, at least not in a minor child. So it is possible to remove yourself, even with your boss. You can say, I'm sorry, but I need to take advice about this. I don't want to talk about this right now. Or if it's even in a business relationship, you can say, okay, I hear you. I need to research this. I need to get back to you about this. It's always possible to remove yourself from the situation if you don't know how to respond, if you find yourself too challenged, or if it's too difficult for you to manage. Okay. If you can't remove yourself, of course, always make sure you're safe. But that was, what I explained at the very start of this show. I would say listen and try not to respond. Try not to talk back. Just listen. Try and keep calm inside, even if you feel aggravated. Because when you feel under threat by someone, you tip into the flight or fight response, which means you'll be in your fear center, and the amygdala in your brain is going to govern everything you do. Now, when you're in your fear center, you cannot think straight, okay? You can't think of the bigger picture. It's just not possible because you're on survival mode, and all that you want to do is either run away, fight, or freeze. Okay, so I would probably say whatever, if it's a real danger, obviously you run away. But if it's the rest, try not to engage in the argument. Try not to discuss what is being discussed, and trying to deflate the argument. And if the person insists and says, Rona, you're not answering, you just say, look, I'm not interested in arguing, okay? I understand you have a problem. I'm going to stay and listen to this problem, and when you're finished, I'm going to go away, I'm going to think about it, and I'll get back to you. That's a perfectly valid way to respond to someone who is aggravated or who is difficult towards you, okay? Making a decision in those instances is never a good idea, because, as I said, you're in flight or fight, and all you're going to do is going to trigger your ego. So this is my tip number 3. Their ego is going to trigger your ego, and that's how arguments is started. That's how sometimes, I'm going to say this. Some people thrive on this. This is their functioning mode. They like to initiate arguments, and there is a reason for this. Because when someone starts an argument with you, it opens up your energy field. This, I know I'm getting a little bit more esoteric here, but please humor me. Please keep an open mind. And this is actually the way they enter your energy and use your energy for their benefit. Okay, this is how energy vampires suck your energy out. After you have an argument, you always feel exhausted, you feel drained, and that's because the person who's initiated the argument literally uses your energy to fuel their own energy, and they drain you. So if you let your ego interact with theirs, that's a way for you to open the door for them to come in and literally help themselves to your energy. You don't want to do that. So how do you move away from that? How do you protect your energy? Well, the first thing that you can do, and this might sound really funny, is you can swipe your hand in front of you with a motion from left to right or right to left, whichever hand you use, whatever's more comfortable, just to stop, to deflect that energy. The second thing that you can do is use 2 fingers. I'm putting my indexes together right now, and you point it at the person. Now, that's not always something that you can use easily in a business meeting, although I do it now, and it might look a bit strange, but who cares? What you want is to protect your energy. And the third thing that you can do is just cross your arms in front of your chest. This protects your solar plexus, and this is actually something we do instinctively when we're on guard. Aren't we intelligent as creatures? Even though if we don't know about energy, we know so much about energy intuitively. So cross your arms right away if someone's being aggressive. That will protect your solar plexus, and try not to engage. Remind yourself, unless you're in danger, in which case you run. This is the fight flight thing. It's there for a reason. But remember to take a few deep breaths and remind yourself that everything is okay. All right, you are a powerful being. Even if you are faced with someone difficult, you can handle it. Okay, and if you can't handle it on the spot, you remove yourself from the situation. It's absolutely okay to leave. It's not an act of cowardice, it's an act of self-protection. And this is probably, I'm insisting on this one because I think for myself, I'm sorry I'm using my mother as an example again, but she was a great teacher for difficult people. She loved to start arguments, and she would just not give up until you gave in. It was like she was like a bone, a dog that had found a bone that needed to chew it until the end. And I thought that it was not okay to leave because she made me feel like a coward if I left. She was like, "How dare you leave this conversation? You don't know whatever. You don't have any bones or whatever it is." But actually, no, it's an act of courage to leave a conversation that's not right, that doesn't feel okay. And no one should make you feel bad for leaving a conversation when it's heated and you don't feel comfortable. All right, tip number 4. If you have time to prepare, suppose that you were going to meet someone difficult, you know it's someone difficult, how can you make it easier on you beforehand? Okay? So I want you to ask yourself this question: what if? So I want you to, because if you know this person and you've had some interactions that were difficult before, you have created a pattern between this person and you. Actually, I wasn't going to mention this, but it's quite a good idea to cut the cords between that person and you. Now, some of you might not be familiar with what cords are. Cords are strands of energy that are created between two people who have a relationship. And the way it happens is we have, every one of us has an aura which sends out feelers to other people. Even if we don't know about auras, this is what happens. You don't need to know about gravity to fall down if you miss a step. It's the same thing with energy. Energy exists whether you're aware of it or not. So what we do whenever, and this is an instinct in us, a survival instinct, whenever we enter a room, whenever we meet someone, our aura is going to send out feelers out to that person to test if that person is safe. And this is why sometimes we have this gut feeling about people that we feel unsafe around them, even though they seem really nice, they have a big smile on their face, and everything seems to be okay. It's your aura. So once you enter into a relationship, whether it's for 5 minutes or whether it's for a lifetime, you start creating strands of energy where things circulate between you and that person. Even like when you speak, if you have a 5-minute conversation with someone, strands of energy are created, and they become cords if someone is trying to manipulate you, if someone's trying to hatch onto your energy and use it for their own device. Again, they don't need to know how energy works to do that. My grandmother and my mother, in another genre, my grandmother was an energy vampire. She used everyone's energy. She was depressed. She always felt low, so she used other people's energy, not through arguing, but through pity, making people feel sorry for her. And she had this big thing, everything it was about her and how much she had suffered and how she had suffered more than you. And by doing that, she was sucking anyone's energy. She didn't know about energy. She didn't know about cords, but that didn't stop her from creating them. And that's what happens. These cords can survive death, by the way. And I don't mean to scare you, but so these need to be cut. Now, if you don't know how to cut themselves, you can probably find a video on YouTube about it. And of course, if you wanted to work with me, that's something that I do during sessions. So I'm more than happy to help you with that. I've had some incredible results by cutting cords for people. Including a lady who was in a domestic violence situation. But again, this is no longer my work. Not like I work now in business. I don't work with people person to person. I'm not a therapist anymore. So I would encourage you to reach out for someone else. And I can actually recommend some people as well. So if you know that you've had this difficult relationship with a person it might not be the relationship that's difficult, it's the person who's difficult, but who cares? It's difficult. Cut the cords so that you can start afresh, because cords, basically what it creates is a pattern that whenever the discussion starts, it always ends up the same way. You always end up with the same kind of argument. You always end up feeling the same way. That's because the cords are there and the energy is there, and it's almost like you're on some train tracks. Sorry, not rain tracks. What am I talking about? So you're on train tracks, and the moment you start a conversation with that person, it always goes the same way. That can also happen in relationships, sadly. At the beginning, everything is rosy. It's like the honeymoon phase, and then after a while, these arguments seem to happen all the time with your partner or your significant other, because they've happened before, and the energy is still there in your energy field. So having a good energy cleanse, and of course for me, I would offer it with your business partner if you have one, or with some of your suppliers or whoever you're working with in your business. If you feel that there's this kind of energy of repetition and it's difficult and you never know how to kind of get out of that rut, then yeah, I can help you with that. So ask the question, what if? What if this time you could be more empowered? What if this time it could go better? What if this time, now you don't approach the situation by being a Pollyanna and think that everything is rosy and there's no issue, but you don't approach it either from the victim point of view where you have no power to change the way things go, okay? You have power. And as long as you can reflect on the situation that's happened, you can go back with a new understanding, and then you can understand strategies like even the first 3 tips that I've given you today can help you to deal with that difficult person, okay? Meditate on the situation, okay? We'll get to, I have 3 more tips to give you. So there's going to be, the last tip is going to be the most powerful, to prepare. But meditate on the situation so that you can sort of remove yourself from your human perspective. I know it's not always easy, but when you manage to elevate yourself above a situation, you can see things a different way, and then you could be shown a solution, really. Okay, and take your power back. You're not a child anymore. You have options. Okay, you don't have to passively be like the hostage of that person's behavior. Even if they've always behaved that way, you can always change things. Now, for the long term, this is my tip number 5. Embrace every situation as an opportunity for growth. Okay, so even if it seems like a pain in the butt at the moment to be in this situation with this person presents in your life for a reason, and it's an opportunity for you to grow. So it's a gift. Don't take it as a curse. It's a gift. I think it's Marianne Williamson who talks about the petty tyrant. That person that is in your life that's like an irritant, but actually they're here to help you see that there's something in you that could be changed. And I know for me, because of the way I was raised, I had a very low self-esteem, and I had quite a bit of a victim mentality because I had been abused. And so for me, it's like I felt powerless. And I was kept on being presented by all these different situations where people would continue to abuse me. It was like this vicious circle. But at the end, it only changed when I stepped up and said, no, actually, I say no. And I put my boundaries down and I say, this is going to change. I'm not taking this anymore. And it took some time because I was presented with the lesson again and again and again. This is like where I'm bringing a bit of that spiritual aspect to the conversation, because this is what I do. I bring spirituality into business and into our mundane life. So you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Why are they bothering you so much? I always say that a difficult situation is like a Velcro. It could be that the person that you're dealing with is a difficult person, but if you didn't have any Velcro for it to stick together, it wouldn't be an issue. And most likely these people wouldn't even enter your life that much. I know it's different with family, and I've dealt with that, and I might share a little bit towards the end of this episode, but I'm trying to say, if it happens to you, now of course, running away from the situation without resolving the issue within you, that means that another person will replace that person. So that's not the situation, that's not the solution either. You really need to go within. So who do these people remind you of? Is there someone in your life in your past that had a similar behavior? In which case, what might have happened is what I just described earlier, is that you run away from the situation, but because you hadn't resolved the issue internally within yourself, you attract more people that are like this person again and again. I had this pattern with some friends. I had a pattern with certain friends who were quite abusive, and I had to work through it step by step. And these were people who had been abused, so I had so much compassion for them. I had so much understanding where they were coming from, but still I was letting them walk all over me out of compassion, and that wasn't serving me at all. So I had to learn by being presented again and again, and these were painful lessons. So in a way, my tips come here today to spare you some of the pain of having things repeat yourself. It's like this broken record, and if you want to change the broken record, you have to change the way you address or you approach the relationship, if that makes any sense. I hope this is helpful. I know this is still quite superficial, but it will give you a starting point to change the relationships in your business and in your life. Because it's likely that if it's this way in your life, you will attract difficult clients, you will attract difficult partners, you will have problems maybe with the tax authorities, whatever it is. If you have this vibration inside of you, it's going to create problems outside of you. Your inner world has an incredible impact on your outer world. So ask yourself, what is the lesson? What is the lesson? What am I supposed to learn here? And also, the last question for tip number 5, what is the blessing? Don't take it as a curse. It is a blessing because it's presented to you because you are ready to deal with it. It would not be presented to you if you weren't ready. So take this opportunity. Hi, Melly. Take this opportunity to deal with the issue as it's presented because it's an incredible opportunity. Now, tip number 6 to deal with difficult people. And that's a tip that you can use before, during, and after. Okay, so these are more like long-term strategies. I want to talk to you today about the Hawaiian practice called the Ho'oponopono. I don't know if I say it correctly, but it's a practice that's been brought into the Western world through a lineage of Hawaiian shamans, I think, or whatever, priests. And it's now been westernized, and I still think it's got an incredible power to resolve issues with difficult people. And the practice is a mantra that is composed of 4 small sentences. So the first one is I love you. So you need to say to the person that you find difficult and that is presenting itself to you, I love you. Okay, it can be really, really difficult to do that, because at that point you probably want to chop their heads off or punch them in the face or whatever it is, or send them to hell. But you have to take yourself back and realize that even though they're an irritant, even though they're a pain, even though you would rather not have to deal with them, they're here. And by reacting to them with resentment, frustration, anger, whatever it is that you react with, you're actually making things stronger. So what happens is, I think it's Carl Jung who said, what you resist not only persists, it grows in strength. Okay, so that's the problem. So by saying I love you, and when you say it the first time to someone that's difficult and causing you a lot of trouble, it will probably seem impossible. And some of you might say, I just can't even go down that road. But I want to invite you to please overcome this resistance, because it's the first step to forgiveness, and by forgiving them, you're actually helping yourself. This doesn't mean enabling people. It doesn't mean giving people permission to walk all over you. You're doing this practice within yourself. So I'm going to describe the 4 steps, and I also want to to share with you an anecdote that happened to me only 2 weeks ago. That was so powerful that I was transformed, and the other person's life was transformed as well, I am sure. So you say first, I love you, I'm sorry, that's part 2 of the mantra. Part 3, please forgive me. Part 4, thank you. Okay, you don't even have to understand why you're asking for forgiveness from this person. What really you want to do is to realize that we are all one, we're all connected. And if you judge another, actually you judge that part in yourself, maybe that you refuse to see, or that used to happen, or whatever it is. But judging always hurts both people, not just people you judge, it hurts yourself. So you want to remove yourself from that judgment, and you want to forgive the person, you want to forgive the situation for even existing. Now, the way this was used in the West to start with, and it's described in Joe Vitale's book Zero Limits, is that it was used by a psychiatrist in a mental health hospital, where the cases were considered incredibly violent. Okay, so these people had come to the point of trauma so much that they had become mentally ill and violent, and nobody knew how to deal with them. Apparently I read the book a while ago, but the people who were in this institution were so violent that actually the staff rotated constantly. There was a huge amount of absence from illness. It was a disaster. And this man came into this hospital. I don't know how he knew about this practice. Maybe he had been trained by one of those Hawaiian priests. And so what he decided was to do the Ho'oponopono on every single case that he had under his care before he even saw them. So he would sit, look at the file and say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And he did that for weeks on end. And then he would see the person. And over a period of time, everybody calmed down. All the people who were in this hospital who were sectioned, their cases became a lot better. Everything, and there was a complete transformation just by this man doing this practice on his own before he even met people. And it's based on the idea that you take 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Hi, Stephanie. even if you're on the receiving end of something that you don't like, just because it shows up in your life, you have a responsibility on how you react to it. I think it's Wayne Dyer who said, what matters is not karma, is the way you respond to things. That's what matters. I totally messed up this quote, but anyway, you get the idea. Is that what matters is not what presents to you, it's how you react to it. So it's your responsibility how you react to anything that comes to you, including difficult people. So do your bit. I'm inviting you to do your bit. So tip 6 is to do the Ho'oponopono. If you want to learn more about it, Joe Vitale's book is quite good. There's also now loads and loads and loads of things on the internet, maybe even a bit too much. But I wanted to share an example into that happened to me very, very recently in my private life with my ex-husband. We had come to like loggerheads with him, and I'm not going to go into the details of why, but we hadn't talked for 18 months. And I felt the need to talk to him to diffuse a problem so that we could be there for one of our children in a united front. So I reached out to him. I actually did the Ho'oponopono for 2 days before I reached out to him. And when I did, his first reaction was, you don't really want to talk to me. Why would you want to talk to me? And he like for a good few hours, he kept on sending messages back to me through email saying either he didn't have the time or this or that or whatever. He was dismissive. And I just kept on coming back because I knew it was important to do that. At that point, I had done the Ho'oponopono. I was completely clear. I wasn't going to let him and his ego and the past relationship. Funny enough, I didn't cut cords, which is one thing I recommended earlier, but it didn't matter. It worked anyway. And after a couple of hours, he gave me his phone number. I called him. We spent a whole hour on the phone where I listened to him. I listened to his grievance. I didn't respond. I didn't react. And believe me, this man is difficult. That's why I left him more than 15 years ago. Well, can't remember exactly when, but yeah, 2001 I left him. But I just stayed in my power. I thought, I chose to speak to him. I have this goal. I want us to maybe not be best friends, but at least to be in good terms. And so I kept my stance. And at the end of the hour, he thanked me 3 times for calling him and having this conversation with him. And this was a complete miracle. And it's also a miracle because he didn't do what I wanted him to do. And yet I had no bad feelings about it. I was like, okay, it's his choice. I'm not going to get aggravated what he's doing in the end. I felt completely at peace. And I know this was down to this Ho'oponopono process. And frankly, I'm so glad I did it. And I will do it again and again and again. Definitely. Now, my last tip number 7, is always take it back to you. I know it's probably the other person that's creating the problem, but if you take it, the only person that you can change in this equation is you. So if you work on yourself, you can actually transform the situation. It could be like with my ex-husband, that he becomes a lot easier to deal with, or it could just be that they drop out of your life completely. But if you take the Velcro off, earlier on I used the imagery or the metaphor of there being a Velcro on you that makes that these people are able to stick to you and have relationships with you and annoy you. If you peel off the Velcro very carefully, then there's not going to be anything that can stick to you anymore. These people might present themselves, but it's not going to be an issue anymore because you will have dealt with whatever it is within you that is making it the issue. Does that make sense? So meeting and having an unpleasant person in your life, a difficult person, as long as they're not abusive, I've made that caveat at the beginning of the video, is an incredible opportunity for you to look at your scars. It's an incredible opportunity for you to heal those scars and to understand that it's all about you. And I know I've started the conversation by saying that difficult people are never about you. This is one of the beauties of spiritual work, is that there's everything and its opposite can be true. So yes, it's never about you, it's about them, but at the same time, if you react badly to it and if it hurts you, then there's something in you that needs addressing. So be thankful that you are shown the work at hand. It's taken me years to come to that point, but now when someone triggers me, when someone bothers me, when a situation really grates me, I'm actually not, I'm not a saint. I'm not grateful right away, but very quickly I come to that point of where's the work at hand? What can I do to work on my side to unravel this sort of knotty situation? So I hope my 7 tips were helpful. I've been here for well over half an hour. Thank you for listening. And for those of you who've come live, it's been a delight to have you. Feel free to ask me questions either under this post if you're on my Facebook page, or if it's somewhere else in the internet world, you can reach me through my page. I Can Help You Thrive on Facebook, and my website is the same, icanhelpyouthrive.com, same name. Have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week, and I speak to you soon. Bye for now.